And thank you for joining us this evening. As you know, we are recording this meeting. So if you are not interested in being recorded, you might want to reconsider. But I don't think anybody these days worries about that. The purpose of tonight is to review the work of the Remapping Taskforce, which has been meeting since 2016. I want to give a shout out to the chair, Charles Robin, who's with us tonight. Thank you, Charles, for some amazing service. There's also, I believe, Brian Johnston, who's a member of that committee, and myself, a recent member. It's been really great working with everyone on this. I also want to welcome the members of the Planning Commission. We have Ian Litwin, who will be doing the presentation. And I also see Jack Convoisier with us tonight. So with that, I'd like to hand the evening over to the Planning Commission. After the Planning Commission presents, there'll be plenty of time for question and answer and public comment.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry, I did not see that Tim Kerner was here with us as well. So welcome, Tim. Sorry, I didn't see you there. He's also a member, a longstanding member of the task force.
All right, can I take it away now?
Yes, please.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Ian. I work for the Planning Commission. I am in our Art and Design division. We run Civic Design Review, Art Commission, and the Percent for Art program. I'm also the Central District Planner. Jack, who is also here, is my colleague. He'll be taking notes and I'll be doing the presentation. If Jack pops out, it's because he's working from home and we have children, but I should be here the whole time. So like Janice said, we've been at this since 2016 to various levels of success. We remapped everything south of Spruce with the exception of South Street. So now we're moving up a little bit. So we're going to be looking at north of Spruce, west of 20th Street. Share my screen. Everybody see that? Okay. So I'm going to go through a detailed overview of every single change with images. I'm going to do a brief overview of what the zoning classifications mean. I'm not going to go into super amount of detail because most of you here are very savvy with this and we've been working on these for a while. So you're going to see a bunch of colors on the maps and all of these maps have been available since Monday also. So anytime you see this light yellow color here, it's basically a row home type zoning. So it's a single family row home. The height limit is 38 feet. It's one house on a lot. And then if you see this darker orange, that's residential multifamily. And there's two numbers that matter for you. It's RM1, which is most of it, which is 38 feet. So it looks a lot like a row home, but the number of units is based on the lot size. So you would get 2 or 3 units for depending on how big your lot is. And then RM4, which often looks the same, does not have a height limit, but it's limited by floor area ratio. So you can build in 350, it's basically 350% of your lot size. Then you're going to see some darker orange, which is RMX3. This is a residential mixed use. So it's mid and low rise buildings. This is a 500 FAR, so it's 5 times the lot size. And some ground floor commercial is allowed. And then you're going to see a bunch of red districts. These are the mixed use commercial districts. The lightest red is CMX 1 and 2. So those are basically your corner store type zoning. So you'll have commercial on the ground floor, residential above. In CMX 2, it's a multifamily. So the units is based on the lot size. And in CMX 1, whether it's single or multifamily is based on what the most restrictive adjacent zoning is. So if you see a CMX 1 on the corner of a block that's all RSA 5, that would only allow to have 1 unit above the commercial. And in CMX 1, the commercial space is optional, whereas in CMX 2, it's required. And then as you get up the density scale, there's CMX 3 and 4. Those are commercial mixed use, so they're allowed commercial, they're allowed residential, office, retail, everything. And they're based on a 500 FAR, and you can, in 3 and 4, there's bonuses you can do. They give you additional density. 4 has a higher maximum on your bonuses. And then CMX5 is the highest we have. That's basically your Market and JFK office buildings. You will see some purples on the map. However, we'll be removing them in this proposal, as there's not really any industrial in this neighborhood anymore. You'll see a lighter and darker. They're basically different intensities of industrial. And then green is the open space zoning district. So this is the existing zoning. As you can see, as you go north towards Market Street, it gets denser. As you go further south, it gets less dense, and everything below Spruce Street here, we've already remapped through a similar process. Before COVID, we had community meetings. I know your committee walked every block of the neighborhood. So those have already been done. Those were introduced by Councilmember Johnson. So now this is the proposed zoning. So everything outlined in black, those are changes. Most of this is basically to align the zoning with what's already built. None of these are vacant parcels. None of these are parking. It's all parcels with existing buildings on it. And a lot of it's tinkering, but we also zone Schuylkill Banks open space. Some of the mid-block stuff, we're down zoning a bit. And then the stuff here that's on the same block as Schuylkill River Banks, those are either zoned up or down, basically away from this industrial zoning. So I'm going to go through change by change. So every single one will zoom in. So this top right here, you see what the proposed zoning is. So this here, we're at 224 through 38 South 20th. This is basically the west side between Locust up to Chancellor, and you can see in this image here, we're looking north on 20th, so the left side of this image. These were zoned CMX3, which would allow a much denser form of development here. So we're making these CMX2. Which would cap their height at 38 feet. And I know some of these buildings are probably taller than 38 feet, but it's much more in line with what's there than the CMX3 is. The next one, this is 2013 through 27 Locust Street. As you go down Locust, away from the square, you get a block. It's a lot of ornate row homes, and then there's a larger tower in the middle of the block. So we decided that all of these should be zoned from CMX3 to RMX3, because the majority of this is residential development. Now it's the corner of 21st and Locust is the southeast corner. This was zoned RM1, which would not allow for this commercial space. So the proposal here is to remap this to CMX1. On this block, the rest of the block is zoned RM1, so they could have multiple units above an optional ground floor commercial space, which is what's there now. Up next, we're at 2009 to 11 Spruce Streets. This is right behind what we were just talking about. So this image here, we're looking west on Spruce. So it's these first few buildings on the right here. These were zoned CMX2. Clearly, there's no commercial use here. So the CMX2 is limited to 20th Street. And as you get back right behind them, these are not commercial buildings. So they're made RM1 in line with the rest of this block here. On the back side of that, so we're still at basically 20th and Spruce, between Spruce and Rittenhouse. The commercial zoning here is kept to the numbered street. And then this small residential building here was zoned CMX2, which requires a commercial space. As you can see, that is not the building type. It's a single family home. So this will be zoned RM1 in line with the rest of the block. Now we're going down Rittenhouse Square Street, further down between 20th and 21st. So there's a group of buildings here on the south side. There's this larger loft building and then these smaller residential buildings. These were all zoned CMX2, so they all required commercial space. Clearly, no one is operating commercial space on this block of Rittenhouse Square Street, so these would be remapped to R1 to match the rest of the block. Now, this is one little guys. This is 247 South Van Pelt Street, just south of Locust. So a lot of these buildings on 21st and Locust, they're larger blocks, they're multifamily, but when you get down Van Pelt, it's a very small, narrow street. Most of these houses are single family, so this would change the zoning of this one block from R1 to RSA5 to match all the other blocks at front on Van Pelt. Since this block does not really have frontage on Locust, it would match the RSA5 zoning of the rest of the block. Up next, this is 2207 through 23 Rittenhouse Square Street, so we're further west on Rittenhouse Square. These parcels front on Rittenhouse but go all the way back to Latimer Street. These were all zoned RM1, which is a multifamily classification. These buildings are all single family. So in this image, we're looking west. So we're talking about the buildings on the right side of the street here. And now we're on the 23rd Street side of that. So further down the street, it's these 4 buildings here. These were zoned RM1. These are all single family houses. So we would change this zoning to single family to match the zoning of the smaller streets here. Up next, we're now at the corner of 22nd and Manning. It is these buildings here. So they're currently zoned a mix of RSA 5 and RM1. It's a split zone. So this would remap these to CMX 1, which would have an optional commercial space. As you can see, there's currently a commercial use on part of this block. Up next, this is the 2300 block of on the south side of Walnut Street. This building has both commercial and residential space in it. It's currently zoned CMX 4, which with bonusing could allow for a lot more building on this block. So this proposal is to remap it RMX 3, which has the same base FAR as CMX 4, but it's much more limited in uses. So there's only commercial allowed on the ground floor, and you can't bonus as much. So it's more in line with the building that's there now. Now we're working further down 23rd Street, basically directly behind that building. These were all zoned CMX 4, which is the second highest district we have. As you can see, it's a series of single family homes. So this is a big correction to zone this to from CMX 4 to RSA 5. And as you loop around the back side of that block, now you're on Bonsall Street. It's the same type of development. These were also zoned CMX 4. So this remaps those to RSA 5 to match the opposite side of the street, which was already RSA 5. Up next, this is the corner of 24th and Locust. This is the southeast corner. So this was zoned RM1, not allowing for commercial space. As you can see, there is a commercial space in this building. So this proposal is to remap this to CMX 1. So this would allow for the commercial space and multifamily units above based on lot size. Up next, so now we're on the 24th Street, just south of Locust. So this image, we're actually looking north. So there's this larger building here, and then these new super row homes here. So these were zoned CMX 3. As you can see, this is all residential space. So this proposal is to remap it to RMX 3, which is the same FAR. However, the types of uses you can do are limited to mostly residential. And now we're sort of around the corner at 23rd and Manning. This building was also zoned CMX 3. So the proposal here is similar to remap this to RMX 3. So this is Manning Street here, and this is 23rd Street in the foreground. We're looking northwest. Up next, so this is at the corner of 23rd and Spruce. We're actually not talking about the corner itself. It's the first building in from the corner. As you can see, this is a residential building. This was zoned CMX 1. So the proposal here is to make it RM1 like the rest of the block and leave the commercial zoning strictly to the corner parcel. Up next, so this is the 2400 block on the south side of Walnut. So now we're up on the Walnut Street Bridge here. This parcel was actually zoned industrial commercial mixed use, which is a very light intensity industrial district that would allow for commercial space. So the idea here is to remap this to CMX 4, which is in line with the zoning across Walnut Street. So now we're immediately behind that building. So now we're on lower level of 24th Street. So here we're looking northwest. As you see the Pico building in the background, this bridge here is Walnut Street. These were zoned ICMX as well. As you can see, we're proposing to remap this to CMX 4 as well, in line with the zoning both to the north and south. And then here's 2401 Locust Street. So now we're getting into a series of residential conversion type buildings. This was also zoned ICMX, and the proposal here is to remap this to CMX 4. And further down the block, we're now at 2429 Locust Street. So this is the corner of Locust and 25th. The park is sort of right behind you, beyond the building here. The proposal here is to remap this to RMX 3, which is the same zoning that we have across the street. This would allow for a small commercial space in the ground floor, Not sure if this building currently has one or not, but it's sort of a mid-rise residential zoning. Now we are across the street from that building. This is essentially the entire block here at between 24th and 25th and Locust. This was also zoned industrial commercial. This building has been residential for a very long time. So same proposal here, remap it to RMX3. So now we're getting into some of the smaller scale stuff sort of behind here. So now we're behind that building, and this is Manning Street here with 24th in the foreground here. This was also zoned industrial commercial mixed use. This is a single family home. The homes behind it on Manning are also zoned single family. So the proposal here is to remap this to RSA 5. Now we're at 25th and Spruce, so we're just north of Spruce. On 25th, this is Manning here in the bottom left corner. These are zoned to RM1. These are all in single family use. They were purpose built that way. So the proposal here is to map these from RM1 to RSA 5. And lastly, this is a big aerial shot. I'm sure you're familiar with it. A bunch of the parcels along the river have not been remapped for open space. So the proposal here is to remap these from, it's a combination of I2, which is medium industrial, and also special parks, also CMX4. So the idea here is to take the land that is now used as park space and remap this to special purpose public open space. So that's an overview of everything. There's also an app we built, and I know the link was sent out earlier where you can like swipe between the before and after. You can search by individual addresses as well. So I can answer any questions anyone has. I know I went over that kind of fast, but I think we're more tinkering than doing wholesale, big zoning remapping moves here, mostly to protect the current fabric.
All right, I think that we have, since we don't have too many people, I'm just going to go ahead and let everybody unmute. And if you have a question, please direct it to Ian.
Well, I guess it's good that no one has questions. It must mean.
If you're on the zoning committee, you've had this in front of you for a while. We kind of put some of these things on the back burner. So nothing has changed since anyone on the committee last saw this. So, none of these are a huge surprise, I don't think.
So I have a question, if you don't mind. And before I ask it, I just want to also recognize Mike Shea's work. We were calling out the members of the committee, and Mike, you certainly have been involved in a very steadfast and continuous way, and we want to thank you for your work.
And for being late.
This is just so Ian, I wanted to know a little bit more about in the future, now that the remapping has been complete. Do you feel that this is set in stone, or how do you see the kind of changes to the land use classification changing in the future?
Yeah, so this is not complete. This needs to be introduced into City Council as a bill. So I think we've reached the point where the Planning Commission and the committee is happy. What we need to do now is get this in legislative form and have City Council pass the bill. So the Planning Commission can't actually change zoning. We need City Council to do it for us, which is what sometimes makes this a political process. I think this is all in one council district.
Two council districts.
Okay, yeah, so it would probably be written as two separate bills based on the district council person. So we would open a dialogue with each of the district council offices. It would help if you guys could express your support, and hopefully we can get them to introduce these in the fall. But until City Council introduces it and it's passed out of City Council, it's just an idea in our heads. So.
Well, Ian, let's say the CCRA works with you over the summer and we codify that this is what we want. When do you think it'd be brought in front of City Council for a vote?
We could have the bills. So we would write the bills for City Council. We would do all of the deed research and measurement and maps and stuff. We could have it ready for September. So it would probably be in October or early November, depending on how they're scheduled. So it has to be introduced, referred to the rules committee, vote out of rules, read twice, and then it's pending legislation and the mayor would sign it. So that process usually takes a couple months.
Let's just say by December 2021, it should be 100% done, if we're lucky.
If we get the support of the council people, yes.
Ian, can you comment on how the process has gone here in Center City versus some of the other areas of the city where this process has gone on?
It depends on the neighborhood and the council person. So we did a remapping bill with Logan Square. They have one council person, so that was easier. We've done things in Bella Vista. We've done things in Queen Village. I would say your neighborhood is a bit harder because you have higher stakes property and zoning. I know that we have not seen eye to eye on some of the stuff on Walnut and Chestnut where it's CMX5 now. So we were able to do south of Spruce Street. A lot of that was similar to this, although we're getting into larger scale stuff now. We've had a bill written for South Street for years and it simply sat on the council person's desk. So most of Center City, after we did the comprehensive plan, with the exception of a couple neighborhoods, have had at least partial remappings, if not a whole neighborhood remapping. But it's a process. It usually doesn't end. So sometimes there's larger developments that come through that we have legislation written specifically for that. But I would say that if the planning commission is behind it and you guys are behind it, it should be easy to get this through because they're not controversial changes. I don't think any of the property owners would oppose to this. So I think that in the fall session is possible. But I would say that if we start moving, east of 20th and we start getting into the Chestnut Walnut area, progress will be much slower. I guess the alternative to remapping is not remapping, and whatever's on the maps stays. So it depends on a lot of factors is the short answer.
Thank you. I believe Jim Duffin has a question.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, forgive my question since this is my first experience with this process. I'm just curious about why the Fittler Walk complex on South 24th Street is made CMX4 and not some sort of residential. I don't know whether that complex is one giant residential complex and everyone rents, or whether those are individual units. To me, it just seems like it would make sense to make it something sort of residential than a CMX4.
Yeah, we can take a further look at that. So some of this is to try to have consistency on blocks and not to like each parcel be zoned, something different. I know that they're all on one parcel as well. So we couldn't really zone that single family, for example, because all the units share one parcel. But we can take a further look at that. If this is too, it might be too high. CMX4 might be too high for that. Yeah.
Rick Rose has a question.
Yeah, we have worked on Market Street from 22nd to 24th to have two overlays for CMX5 for major developments there, which we all supported. And there were CBAs. Can you explain the CMX2 adjacent to the east between 20th and 21st? That seems heavily downzoned for what is, at least in our view, absolutely appropriately CMX5. Yeah,
that block is a zone CMX4. So the planning commission recommended that all of these blocks here, so from 20th to all the way over to the river, so this whole section here, we recommended them all be CMX5. Over the years, the individual developments have come through and we remapped them one block at a time. I think we would be perfectly happy to upzone this block. I don't know if you guys want to wait for a specific proposal. I guess the block's already built though. So we would have no problem with that. It just wasn't included on these maps. But we don't have a problem with that.
Rather than have to do an overlay when a developer comes to us, we have been consistent. CCRA has been consistent that Market Street actually, the whole length of it there is appropriate CMX5 zoning. And it would make, at least the committee should consider.
Yeah, I don't
come
disagree
back
with
to you
you.
and talk about that parcel which sticks out as a sore thumb.
Yeah.
You said it was CMX4, but the color looks like CMX1 too.
Yeah, it's for, so the existing zoning on this map has a transparency on it. I'm sorry about that. It is CMX4.
And the proposal looks like it's CMX1 too, based on the color. I can't,
Yeah, the proposal, so we're not proposing to change that block at the current time, but we could include that if you guys think it's a good idea. So only things that are outlined in like this heavy black here are proposed to change.
So Rick, we weren't even going north of Walnut Street as part of this meeting. There's some other minor changes between Walnut and JFK that we've talked about addressing and just didn't want to take them into this meeting. We took a small chunk.
Yeah, and the committee has spent a long time actually discussing the advisability of CMX5 versus CMX4, and I think that's probably an internal discussion, Rick, rather than one we should have with Ian.
But one
It is worth noting.
one thing I will add regarding dovetailing on what Charles Goodwin said and what Mike Shays said is that by maintaining CMX4, it was the decision by the Remapping Taskforce that would allow our committee input into development. So if it is a development for appropriate CMX5, presently zoned CMX4, we have worked with the developers to allow that type of CMX5 development, but it gives us an opportunity to have a seat at the table maintaining CMX4.
It's absolutely accurate, Charles, and we should discuss this. separately, but we're suddenly having agreed to allow the other two parcels to go CMX5. It's suddenly sticking into an area that seems obvious that we should change it, but we can take that up to a separate meeting and should not address it today. It wasn't in the area for this conversation.
And another consideration is the Morgan Lewis building at 23rd and Market. I think, Ian, you'd agree, while I believe that was rezoned CMX5, it fits within the envelope of CMX4 easily, doesn't it?
I'm not sure that it does from an FAR standpoint. It's a pretty big building. It's not that tall, but it has, it covers most of the lot and it goes up 20 something stories. So I'm assuming that is CMX5 in scale. I mean, it doesn't really matter because it's approved and under construction, but I think that's CMX.
When the lawyers presented to us at the meeting, I asked that question and the lawyer said yes, but he qualified that by saying it's a complicated issue, as you know, but
yeah,
it's something else to consider here.
That also gets us into like super CMX5 territory. So anything that's remapped CMX5 there is actually 1800 FAR, not 1200. So it might not be quite 1800, but it might be 12. I'm not sure. I can look that up though.
Never trust what the lawyers say. You know that.
He did qualify his answer.
Yeah, there is a big jump between 4 and 5. So you're going from 500 to 1200. So I could see how it's not as tall as a lot of the other buildings, but it probably still needs that zoning to make its FAR. So we can look at what the actual FAR is of that building.
I have a question.
Okay, can you tell us your name? You might want to, I think you might want to mute your phone or your computer, one or the other.
Okay, how's that?
Still, we have an echo.
What's that? Ah.
There you go.
How's that? I'm so sorry.
So what do you got?
Can you type your question in the chat? Is that possible?
Can I ask your name?
All right. Well, unless anyone else has a question, I want to thank the Planning Commission for your excellent work with us. And I know it's not yet quite over, but we welcome the relationship that we have with you and want to continue working with you. Hello, we still have an echo.
I know.
Can you put it in the chat?
I'm trying to.
Okay.
Let me ask one quick thing, and
Go
that
ahead.
is
I got to respond.
the row homes on 24th Street. You are marking actually all the way down to RSA 5. I mean, that's not a historically protected area at all.
Sorry. Yeah, are you talking? So
I have the park side. You flip past it. That one, yeah. Those, the little home, yes, those home. I mean, well, it's all relatively new construction. I'm not sure it's, and I don't recall our discussions in remapping, but really that inappropriate a location for something that might be taller if someone could put the parcel, because it's right on the park with a river view.
yeah,
I mean, Charles, you are allowing CMX 4 there, so that is.
Climbing
yeah. And there was a comment earlier that that might be too much for this parcel.
Maybe I'm misrecognizing the parcel. It's something on the park front that was going down to RSA 5.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about.
It was something that looked right across the street. Currently, it's small single family. Yes, those.
Yes.
I mean, this is out of the historic. I mean, not that anybody's going to ever be able to buy up all these homes or some of the adjacent park. But it does seem to me that that's someplace one could put, say, a taller, handsome building with a park view at some point in the future, that would not be, say, an out of keeping. And I don't think there's a historical overlay on that.
I mean, it's RM1 now, so it's limited to 38 feet as it is. This just limits it to 1 unit per lot, which it is, but I mean, it's up to you guys.
Yeah.
Charles, my preference is not to revisit stuff that we've already decided as a group, but to get outside input from others.
Yeah.
I'm just not recalling our deliberations on this block.
Apologize for this. I can't see the square that's doing the interference on my screen.
I'm sorry, did you get my question?
I have not seen it in the chat yet. I wrote you a little note.
I know. How do I get it to you?
Well, why don't you go ahead and we'll just put up with it. What is your question?
Are there any change plans? 2300 block of Sansom Street.
That's to drink.
Okay, are there any plans for the 300 block of San?
2300.
2300, thank you.
The answer is it's not part of our discussion at this meeting since it's north of Walnut Street. We have talked of it. I, off the top of my head, don't recall what our discussions have been about that. We'll have a separate meeting for that area at the appropriate time.
that would suggest a question to Charles about what the next public meeting would be. What do we think the timing will be?
Well, this one went pretty well. And this looks like a great arrangement, honestly. And thanks for doing all the photographs and everything. It really is.
Some things actually work better like on Zoom and remote. So I think that we might do it this way in the future, even if we're in person. This worked out pretty well going, one by one like this. So, and you still have access to the Slidey app, so you can slide back and forth and you can search by address. So you should have that link, so you can still see if you have any more questions. Let me see.
Letting it not go to the 2300 block of Sansom Street. It hasn't addressed, it only addresses what we're seeing on this plan, correct?
Yes. So the only things north of Walnut was the stuff on the water where the park is. Those are the only things that were included here.
That made sense. I
Yeah.
saw that. That your kids?
Not mine. Mine's out with my wife right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not mine either. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So if everything was good, we could get started on drafting the legislation so that, when council's back in session in the fall, we have it ready. It would help if you guys reached out to the council people as well, so that they know, they'll put more weight behind your support than they will behind mine. So, we almost need each other to get this done.
I just want everyone to know on this Zoom meeting is that our process as the Remapping Task Force has been to have this on CCRA's website. We'll allow for 1 week's worth of comments of the community. The Remapping Task Force will then reconvene, take into consideration any community comments that happened this evening or within the next week. And then, we're going to present to the board of directors or the executive board as need be, and then we'll get back to the planning commission.
Works for me.
Right.
I think that's probably it, Janice, don't you?
I do. I just want to make sure that I kind of said goodbye about 10 minutes ago, and then I feel like we started up again. So I want to make sure I leave enough space of silence in case anybody else has a thought.
Could our committee stay on for just 5 minutes? I would just say, let's just do that and wrap up while we're all together.
Right. Good night, everybody.
Me and Jack will sign
Okay.
off.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thanks again.
and Ted and everyone else from the neighborhood that joined us. Still a couple people on.